Hello, my name is Andre Fowler. I'm the interviewer, and I am interviewing.
My name is Kimberly Layton. I am 31 years old. I am a flight attendant for Omni Air International, and I'm here to speak of the pandemic and civil unrest and economic turmoil.
So, we're going to start with the first question. And the first question is, how have you adapted due to the pandemic?
So, for me, during the pandemic, I lost everything. I was living in Atlanta and I had a full-time job. That airline basically laid me off, and I had to move back in with my parents and move back into Jacksonville, Florida. And I adjusted from a pay that I was not used to unemployment. And the unemployment was decent. So a lot of what I was used to increased. So my work ethic became nothing, and my pay became more than I was used to. One thing that was adjusting for me was going back into the real world once that pandemic stimulus ended, and I learned the value of a dollar. I learned that I am so much more than I thought, because you doubt yourself, and when you have nothing, you sit with your thoughts, you sit with all these things, and you realize maybe I should go back to school, maybe I should find a different career path, because you're just sitting in those feelings, right? And for me, I changed my whole life around. I went back to school. I got a scholarship through Goodwill. And living with my parents really settled that in for me at my 30 years old, doing something I didn't want to do.
That sounds great. Now, we're going to go to the next question. What you think are some challenges that you faced during the pandemic?
So some of the challenges that I faced was definitely, losing my job and living with my parents, which nobody wants to do that. I had to work odd jobs like construction and, DoorDash, all those delivery services, and really feeling alone. To me, that was really rough, and feeling like I had to find something quick because nothing was working. And I honestly felt like the sense of the economy crashing, and I felt like if nobody's got me, then who? That sense of wonder of this world is crumbling beneath me. People are dying, and I really, at that time, 2020, that I really thought I was going to start losing people I loved. So to me, that panic set in, like, I need to make more money. And so I started searching.
Did you think that the mask mandate was inevitable? As in, did you think that we needed it?
So it's tricky because I'm from Florida. So I feel like COVID never really happened for us because the world never really stopped like that. I absolutely think that we should have increased the mask mandate, and that it was inevitable, and to listen to the CDC and just to comply to typical, they're scientists, they are experts of pandemic situations or an epidemic or viruses, diseases, and how to control it. So for me, I believe in those leaders, and I believed in that. And living in a state where no one else did was really rough for me because I felt like helpless, right? And I felt like it was very necessary. And you see other countries, how they controlled and isolated the virus, and we were not doing that. We were not taking it apart. And maybe it should have been more of a national mandate rather than stateside or state by state, because it extended our regulations, our COVID mandates, because everyone else was idiotic.
Couldn't said it better myself. What is your preferred working style? And what I mean by that is between remote or in person during the pandemic.
So my preferred was definitely in person because I am a social person. However, I did work remote for healthcare, and I just took patients' calls and scheduled their appointments and renewed their medication, things like that. But only getting one sense of human, which is just auditory, was kind of mind-numbing, and staring into a screen is awful for any person's mental health. So I think, getting back to that normal routine is very hard transition for a lot of people. And for me, it put me into a very dark mental place. So whether or not people prefer to work in their pajamas, everyone has a different working style and a different personality. And if it's something that works for you, perfect. But when you're lying to yourself and thinking that that's easier, but you're not feeding your soul by talking to people and looking out of a sunlight window or taking a break at a walk at the park nearby your work, those things that you aren't accessing normally at your regular job are going to take more effect to your work life or the things you care about.
I definitely couldn't agree with you more. Having a 30-minute break just to smell the flowers actually helps. The next question I have is, what does a full employment looks like for the United States? And how far are we from there?
So full employment in the United States, I mean, it looks like less gentrification, less pushing homeless out and giving more resources, social workers, or that, the money that goes towards them increasing. Honest conversations with people that are asking for money, and internships being paid, and people that are working towards their education need better jobs. They need more chances to survive. And even just that, college athletes getting paid for what they're doing when they're risking their physical lives. We are capitalizing on so many things, but we're forgetting about the human beings that live on this earth. So why are we not employing people when we're actually making them work? But we're taking all of their merchandise, we're taking all of these things and monopolizing on them. It makes zero sense. And job fairs, making that actually hireable, and I don't know, maybe advertising more for that, because there are so many jobs out there. But if you increase the minimum wage, you increase these things that would make employees happy, then you wouldn't have a high revolving rate, turnover rate. You wouldn't have this extra money that you're constantly retraining employees because you made them happy, because you're paying them a proper wage to survive. $10 an hour, $8 an hour, that does not cut it. That you would have to work 3 jobs to survive. So if you want people to not sell drugs and do all side hustles that are off the table, which a lot of people are doing, freelance work, things off the table, welfare, and people are finding it more profitable because nobody is wanting to be responsible to pay people properly. And these big companies like Amazon pay lobbyists to evade taxes, but they're paying the same amount of money rather than putting it back into the system.
I felt that. Next question. Do you think the housing market has changed pre-pandemic and post-pandemic?
Wow, yes. Absolutely. My hometown, Jacksonville, Florida, was actually just on 60 Minutes. Yes, because in the last 2 years, our housing market has increased by 33%. We are the number 1 highest increase market right now. So countries as far as Canada are buying properties in Jacksonville just to resell for that value. And before I moved out of Jacksonville, the lowest 1-bedroom studio apartment I could find, which is in Moncrief, which anyone who lives in Jacksonville, Florida knows that Moncrief is like bang bang city, okay? $1,200 for that property. And just 2 years ago, it would have been $400, $500. And that increase is insane, and it's not livable. And communal living is going to keep increasing. People are going to start living. There's no way even people married could not, their income couldn't suffice just that living. Right. And there's going to be a crash just like there was in 2008. I could foresee it. Mm-hmm. And again, it's only working for a small percentage of people. So people who own property and who are reselling it, they're making bank, and so is the government with Section 8 housing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it shouldn't be that way. We are the largest landmass in the country. There's more than enough room for everybody. Why does it make sense to increase those rates, push the homeless out, gentrify areas that were already making those monies, or those money, to work for only a certain amount of people?
Next question. What do you think is the cause of rising not only gas prices, but food prices as well?
Well, that goes, globally, where we get our oil from. It's all based, it has nothing to do with anybody in office. Mm-hmm. Contrary to popular belief, when you see those photos or stickers of Biden, like, I did this. No, he didn't. Mm-hmm. It's where we get our main export oil from. A lot of it comes from the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And it becomes, a war thing. A lot of our wars have been over oil and religion, which is bullshit. However, when it comes to food, that just becomes supply and demand. When milk and gas go up, those are almost they correlate. They kind of stay in the same bracket. You can see where we're at when you look at oil and gas, or oil and milk. And I just feel like we are overpopulated, even though studies say that we're not having enough children, but it shows that we are not producing enough natural resources. That's why I do recommend maybe we should start canning things. Maybe we should start making it more legitimate and eating more plants rather than animals. Yeah, self-producing, because like GMOs and all these things that we're adding to our food just so that these things are bigger are not good for us. And so when we have a supply and demand, we have less cost, especially with oil. You see where it's taking us, with Russia cutting off supply to Bulgaria. And so now there's so much less trade, and that's going to cause war. That's going to cause strife. That's going to cause a lot of their import and export to be completely eliminated. Right. So what that causes is panic and more stress.
So I've recently heard about there's been an increase on Similac. Do you think you can give me any insight about that?
On Similac?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I'm not sure I know enough information about that to talk about.
Let me look it up.
Pause. Okay, so sorry, I'm not a mother. Yeah, Similac formula. So it's only in the U.S., right? Mm-hmm. So the lack of resources we have are only in the United States. So even if you go to Amazon and you change your location to Canada, mm-hmm. it will still ship to your house. So tell me why it's only a shortage in the United States. You go to Mexico, Canada, any other country, they have no problems. And it's causing so much turmoil and panic. These mothers are having to drive hours out of their way just to provide for their child, mm-hmm. yet they're putting bans on children. Do you even care about these children? You're putting an abortion ban, but really, there's not even formula to feed these children in our own country. So put out one fire before you make another. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. So when it comes to the imbalances of the world that we currently live in, what do you think are some solutions?
So I think we should have hard conversations with each other. I think that it is a nation divided right now. And instead of looking at it as, we were offered the same situations, or we were all, I worked hard to get here. Actually, no, because a lot of people are not offered the same solutions. They're not offered the same education. Their areas are over-policed. They're not given the same circumstances or chances, regardless of what you think. So if your privilege has blinded you for all these years through the pandemic, through all of this economic stance, all of the real estate bullshit, gas prices increasing, price gouging, food and formulas being desolate, I urge you to just educate yourself and talk to people. And if you have more, give that. Because we are not strong without our weakest link. And I am that person. I believe that if you have... So when it comes to this awkward and awful and hard, trying times when we have so much injustice, imbalance, and confusion in the world, if we just talk to each other, if we put out more resources, if more people reach out to their own communities, if people became leaders and spent less time on Facebook and more time volunteering in their local communities, if we gave out more scholarships instead of spending money on game shows and gambling and all these resources that are just for entertainment and distraction of what's really important, if we focused our resources a little bit more and guided them to the right place, we would be a lot better. And with the pandemic and all of these crashes that are going to happen and are inevitable in happening, we have to find something better, because the higher class, this 1% bullshit, will not exist without the working class. Without the working class and the middle class putting money back into the economy, you are nothing without our dollar. You are nothing without us. And I just urge people to have hard conversations and talk to each other and educate each other and keep staying passionate, because like Dr. Seuss said, nothing is going to change if someone like you doesn't care a whole awful lot. And that really stuck with me. And that's why I am here doing this interview. And one thing that Dr. Seuss that really taught me is caring a lot. And for me personally, I campaigned for Barack Obama. I campaigned for Joe Biden, where I was working door to door, and I worked the election. And it was really hard for me to see, the lack of care in my community and people my age. But that's what drives me, is because if not you, then who? And that is something that has stuck with me. So you keep striving to be better. You keep hoping that something will change, because maybe Gen X and the millennials will take a change and say, you know what, that's why we're marching on this. Not sure what stopped, but that's why we're marching the streets. That's why we're fighting for what we believe in, because we are worth it. For our children, for us, we are so worth it, because we are slowly and quickly becoming the less educated country, the less ally.
We are worth it. We
are slowly becoming a country that doesn't want to be an ally with, and we are losing our allies. And the more that we become an ally, the more that we lose our ego and we start working together, the quicker we will become back where we needed to. And you know what? The campaign of Make America Great Again was a campaign based off of fear. That's fear mongering. We were already great. Let's go back and find what we believe in to be true, which is that we were already great. Let's harness that and find a solution and find our communities, because they are already within us, right? Get out there and vote. Make sure that you stay on top of your finances, because we are all going to be broke. And especially if you're a college student, I really hope that you have 3 degrees, because it's going to be rough out there. It's 2022. May we all stay woke.
And that will conclude the interview. I hope you enjoyed, and you guys have a great day.